The Moomins, best known for the 1990s cartoon adaptation of the 9 books, which were written by Finnish native Tove Jansson, is a family that for so many brought elation and eventually bitterly left us. The head of this family was Moomin Papa. Moomin Papa is brave and partially clueless. His most obvious characteristic is the top hat he wears. This and his walking cane distinguish him from the other Moomins. Beside Moomin Papa stands Moomin Mama. Moomin Mama is the glue of the traditional family and is distinguished by her striped apron and handbag, which seems to contain every needed item possible. Moomin Ma and Moomin Pa's child is Moomin. He is the only biological child and son to the Moomins, and is our main protagonist. Little Mai is a tiny red-headed creature that loves mischief and causing trouble.
He's gonna fall in this time.
What?
Come on. This way, towards me. Come on. Come on.
Oh!
Mai lives with the Moomins and supposedly is the half-sibling to Snufkin. Though these 4 are the immediate family that comprise the Moomins, there are still other prominent non-Moomin characters, such as Snork Maiden, Moomin's expected love interest, Snuff, a mouse/kangaroo looking creature, and Snufkin. Snufkin is a harmonica-playing vagabond that lives a simple life and is best friends with Moomin. The first drawing of Moomin Troll was done after Tove Jansson was involved in an argument surrounding literary philosophy after her brother, Per Olav, had downplayed a quote of Kant she rather was fond of. She drew the ugliest thing she could think up on an outhouse wall at the family's usual summer retreat, an island in the Gulf of Finland. From here, she would go on to draw and illustrate for the satirical magazine Garm, who commissioned drawings from her while she was still in school. This wasn't necessarily a surprise, as she had been a recognized graphic artist since the age of 14. From the age she could hold a pen, she would sit with her mother, who was a graphic artist for hire, and mimic her mother's drawings. The name Moomin Troll was originally thought up by her uncle, who she stayed with in Stockholm in the 1930s while studying. While working for Garm, she would draw satirical illustrations of radical leaders, such as Hitler and Stalin, using imagery to personify her discontent with the war that was now turning Finland's cities to splintered wood, powdered concrete, and life-crushing rubble. By the time the war was subsiding, she had decided she would never have a family, preferring instead to become an artist. This is when the first book, The Moomins and the Great Flood, would be published in 1945. In this time period, Tove is quoted as saying she felt that all the lovely colours had died during the Winter War. The book had started being written in the opening months of the Winter War, and we can clearly see the World War's influence in the book, as in said book, Moomin Troll and Moomin Mama are in a deep dark forest searching for Moomin Papa, who has gone off adventuring. On their adventure, they come across several different characters, one of which is the mouse/kangaroo creature Sniff, who is featured throughout the books and is a character in the animated series. After moving inland, a rainstorm begins that lasts several days, causing a great flood. Once the rain stops, Moomin Mama and Moomin sail across the flooded landscape on an armchair. They eventually find Moomin Pa up in a tree. Moomin Pa is in distress, as the blue house he built has washed away in the flood. After walking for some time, they come across a beautiful valley and the wonderful blue house Moomin Pa had built. This valley would later be Moomin Valley, the home of the Moomins. The use of a deep dark forest and the feeling that you receive when lost accompanies the overall emotional state which is expected from the population of a country after the family is forcefully reduced by war and the homes reduced by Soviet bombs. The second book, Comet in Moominland, once again is a reflection to the war, in which a comet is used as a metaphor relating to bombs and the fear stirred by bombs. Tove would go on to move into a studio apartment, a Helsinki loft to be more exact. After writing 2 other books, she was approached in 1954 by at the time the largest newspaper in the world, London The Evening News, which reached 20 million readers daily in 40 countries. This would last from 1960 till 1974, when she decided not to renew her contract, instead handing the job to her brother Lars. She instead would go on to write 2 books, Moomin's Summer Madness and Moominland Midsummer, and pursue her career as a serious, fine artist, something she had always wanted to be. The newspaper job, however, had relieved her from her hand-to-mouth poor lifestyle. On August 16th, 1959, a Moomin puppet show would air on West German TV, with the final episode aired on August 21st, 1959. This would be the first time the Moomins reached the television screen, but certainly not the last. The Moomins would have to wait till 1969 and 3 books later to see the screen again, and this time it came from a very unlikely place, Japan. In 1969, it was agreed upon that Fuji TV would produce an animated series in Japan. In this animation, they distorted the book storyline, changing the characters' personalities mildly and creating whole new unrelated storylines. This led to Tova saying, "My Moomin is no car, no fight, and no money." The show had 65 episodes and ended in 1970 with the episode Good Night Moomin. Episode 1 to 26 were made by Tokyo Movie Shinsha, whereas episode 27 to 65 were made by Studio Mushi Productions. This change is due to Tova being distressed at characters' disingenuine transformations. After this, Tova and her lover, Tulaki, who she met in the mid-50s, would sail out into the Finnish Gulf to a small island and spend 2 years building a small getaway summer house. One summer, while Tova was writing what would be the final Moomin book, her mother passed away. This turned the final book, with its absence of the Moomins and its addition of an orphan character who is clearly in part a reflection of Tova, the saddest Moomin book ever written. In said book, the Moomins have sailed away for an unknown reason. An orphan arrives in search for his mother, expecting some kind of help. But instead, the big blue Moomin house is dark, cold, and silent. Throughout the book, the remaining characters arrive at the Moomin house, bewildered to find it abandoned. The sense that the Moomins will eventually return gradually fades, until by the end of the book, when no Moomins return, the house remains empty and we are left in a saddened shock. We finally are forced to realize they never do return. No Moomin books are published after this book, and the story is over. The third animation series and the first to be distributed worldwide, Moomin. Finnish animation and commercial producer Dennis Livson managed, with a very difficult persuasion, to coerce Tove into getting on board with Moomin 1990. Livson showed a preview in Tokyo 1 year later, and Tove loved it, exclaiming, "They live." With Tove's pleasant response to the show, the all-clear was given to produce the 1990s animation. The 1990s animated series would put the Moomins on the world stage and keep them there for decades. It had 78 episodes. It would establish the Moomins as household entities the world over. Without the 1990s animation, this and other documentaries, mainstream and on YouTube, would, I'd wager, not exist. The 1990s animation is by far my favourite and my introduction into the world of the Moomins. When I think of the 90s, I think Bob Ross and the Moomins. From what I can tell, most fan art uses the 90s design of the characters. Speaking of which, there is a huge supporting fan base to the Moomins, and the 90s animation has found itself at the centre of this fan base. The 1990 animation was co-produced by the Dutch company Telecable Benelux BV, currently under a new name, and Japanese animation studio Telescreen Japan Inc., hence why it was aired in Japan first. In the year 2001, on the 27th of June, Tove would sadly pass away from cancer. The Moomins may have lost their mother, but Tove's niece, Sophia Jansen, daughter to Lars Jansen, works as artistic director for the Moomin Company. So the bloodline remains. Even after Tove's death, the Moomins didn't stop there. At the time of this recording, they have recently opened Moomin Valley Park in Japan in March 2019. They also have a new Moomin series out. They have a well-made, great website that I recommend checking out also. And it helped me make this documentary on the Moomins. It's very well made. It's probably the best website I think I've ever seen. So please go check it out. And so that's the story. It's sad at parts. It's happy at others. But it reflects life. And I'm sure that that's what it was designed to do.